everybody, as you're joining in on this gorgeous fall afternoon. We all should be outside playing somewhere in the sunshine and looking at the beautiful leaves outside. For those of you who are logging in, if I've not had a chance to meet you, I'm Dottie Summerfield Justy. I'm the president of Summerfield Associates, a small boutique recruiting and consulting firm, and have the joy of being the co-chair of the Small Business Council with my buddy over there, Patricia McKinney. We're going to wait just a few more minutes until everybody gets a chance to log in. If you have questions, please use the Q&A or the chat, and hopefully Patricia or I will be able to answer that for you as we go along. Because we're doing this in webinar format today, you're just going to see our smiling faces and not have a chance to see each other's. I hope everyone is having a great fall as we head toward the end of the year. I'm going to turn it over to Patricia in just a minute. I think I'll do that now. Patricia, I'm going to give this to Patricia McKinney, my co-chair for the Small Business Council.
All right, thank you so much, Dottie, and welcome. It is November. It is hard to believe that we have come to almost the end of 2021. My goodness. So next Thursday, many of us will be celebrating Thanksgiving and we'll be reflecting on all the things that we're grateful for. But we here at the Greater Memphis Chamber and the Small Business Council, we're thankful for our sponsor of the Small Business Council programming, and that is Independent Bank. And we're so fortunate to have Susan Stephenson, who is the co-founder and co-chair of Independent Bank. Susan, without you all, without you and your wonderful organization, we could not do what we're doing. So we thank you so much. So we want to give you the opportunity, Susan, to say a few words.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much. And I join with our co-chairs and say the Small Business Council is very important to all of us in the chamber. It's very important to all of us in this community. And for us at Independent Bank, it's especially important because we understand, we feel we're kindred spirits. We're all in the business of trying to make our community better and trying to make our businesses work. And because we're entrepreneurs ourselves, we started this company 23 years ago, and we understand exactly what you're living through and experiencing. And we're particularly proud to be a partner in this process. I always feel that I want to say thank you for the privilege, because we consider that a great privilege. And I also want to say we always want to be a resource. And when I mean, I'm not asking you to do anything with us other than have the opportunity for us to potentially be helpful to you. Our job in this great city is to lift each other up. And we want to be a part of that as an organization, to be partners with all of you. And so thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for all the hard work that goes into this. I'm always aware of the great and serious effort that has been put into trying to make sure that we provide the right information, the right things for all of you. And it's unusual today. I'm going to have a chance to share some thoughts about where we go after living through this extraordinary time all of us have experienced since March of 2020. So I'm happy to be here and grateful to be here, and I appreciate you all and look forward to having just a few moments to share some things with you.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Susan, and thank you again. Without you and the bank support, we would not have been able to do what we've done, especially these last 2 years. It has been an amazing pleasure to work with you since we started the Small Business Council.
Absolutely.
And I can't thank you enough. There's another group that has been instrumental in providing all of you the fun programming that we've had this year and hopefully continuing next year. And we call it our think tank. And this is a group of about 20 of our local business leaders, not-for-profit leaders, who have been with us since the beginning and since actually through the Prosper Series last year, who have helped us plan and give thought to the programming that all of you have had the joy of participating in. And with us today is Michael Detroit, representing the think tank. Michael is the producer at Playoffs on the Square and has not missed a single meeting that we've had. So Michael, for all of us, and Jana Cardona is with us also. Jana's been presenting with us for a couple of times too. Thank you all for your input. When we started the year, following on from last year's Prosper series that many of you took part in, we wanted to make sure that we continued on in providing small businesses what we don't have on staff. We don't have our marketing, we don't have our HR, we don't have our cheerleaders, we don't have someone who understands the business world the way that we do, that always comes with a different perspective. Susan Stephenson has been gracious in us, and I'm not going to read her bio because
Please don't.
Patricia did that. Please, no. But I can tell you, as I have told everyone when we were lucky enough that Susan agreed to speak for us at this time of the year, you're in for a joyous time to listen to Susan as she talks about leading forward. Susan, the floor is yours, and thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. If technology works, oh, ta-da, I'm always so excited when technology works. First of all, as I said, I'm really grateful to have a chance to be with you today. And those of you who know me well know that my favorite way to have a presentation is to be able to look everybody in the eye and have communicate with you directly. So I'm missing that right now. And I just want you to know that in spirit, I'm gazing at you all. And hopefully today we'll have a chance either through the chat or certainly if you have any feedback you'd like to give me afterwards, I'm very interested in hearing from you. I think we learn best when we listen to each other and talk about what we've learned and where we've been. And certainly my thoughts today that I want to share with you are some thoughts about where we go from here. Last year, I had a chance to participate in the Prosper series, and I talked a little bit about resilience. And what I thought as we were approaching the end of 2020, I thought we were really approaching the very end of the extraordinary experience of COVID. And what I learned, obviously, is that there was more in store for all of us. And I'm certain now, because I continue to learn the lessons of COVID, that whatever I may think I know today, I'll have to reconsider as I move forward. So today is just a chance for me to share, hopefully, a little bit of context about where we've been and where we might be going as we look to the future. And the idea that I want to really focus on at this point is this, and that is it's been, without question, a process that has changed us. Living through this worldwide pandemic has been a transformative experience for all of us. And it's had a lot of challenge in it, but it's also got some opportunity. And so today I hope I have a chance to share a little bit about what I've learned in this process and maybe some things that will give us some positive and a hopeful sense about where we go as we move into 2022 and beyond. So, as I said, the numbers are pretty startling, and I think it is without question that this experience of COVID-19 has certainly reshaped our collective journey and our individual journey. At the moment that I put this presentation together, 5,102,194 souls had been lost to COVID-19. Actually, I checked this morning, and this statistic comes from Worldometer, which is one of the resources along with Johns Hopkins that we've used throughout. And this morning, 5,126,530 people have been lost to COVID-19. We have truly not experienced anything like this, certainly in my professional career. And every time I think, I tell people all the time, in January of 2020, I literally said, we are poised to have an extraordinary year, all of us collectively. The economy was expanding. We had real high productivity was at all-time highs. We were really positioned both as a country and as a city to really have a prosperous 2020. And our journey was interrupted by what none of us could imagine or experience. And I will tell you, I don't think that we even understand yet today exactly what COVID-19 has meant to all of us, to our businesses and to our economy. But I thought it was important to sort of establish some context. So as you take a look at this screen, I want you to understand that the total impact of COVID-19 to this moment on our economy has been $16.2 trillion. Just to give you context, the impact of 9/11 on the economy after almost 5 years was less than 6 trillion. So if you try to explain, there is no single event or experience in any of our lifetimes that is even close to the economic impact of COVID on us. And when you look at that, I want you to, just as you take a look at it, there's a big section of that is what that is associated with the loss in gross domestic product, what we did not produce that we were expected to produce in terms of our economy from the moment that COVID-19 began until present. But that is $7.6 trillion in lost production, in lost economic value that we would have created that we have lost as an economy. We've also had the impact of long-term health impact of $2.6 trillion. Mental health impact of 1.6, and I think that's probably grossly understated because it's very difficult to capture that component. And then finally, premature deaths, $4.4 trillion. We have lost an entire generation of people who would have been contributing to our economy, to our collective value in our country as a result of COVID-19. And that's an impact that can't ever be recovered. I also want to take just a second to unpack a couple of other things. And I know this is context setting is important. And I want to just make sure that I share a few thoughts about the things that we didn't expect to have happen. I want to talk for a few minutes about government intervention, what it has, the value of that intervention and what it's meant to us. I want to talk about how our workforce has evolved and changed in ways that we never expected. I want to just acknowledge the impact of inflation on all of us right now, and then think about consumer shifts, particularly as it applies to all of us as business folks, what it means and what it means to us as in terms of where we're going. First of all, government intervention since the beginning of the pandemic has been what can only be described as we used every tool and every resource that we could bring to bear as an economy to avoid having this pandemic lead to not only a recession, but a depression. The government made a decision that we were going to fill the gap, that they were going to attempt to fill the gap for both businesses and individuals so that people did not experience just a complete collapse of their ability to process and produce what they needed to take care of their family. I don't think many people realize we've had $1 trillion in payments that have been made to citizens in this country. And when I talk about that, I would just acknowledge many people have not experienced that, but a staggering percent of households, the estimate today is between 75 and 80% of US households have had at least one of these payments from our government directly. And that was really driven by household income or individual income. If you had household income that was less than $150,000, or you had individual income that was less than $75,000, we made a series of transfer payments to individuals. It started with $1,200 payments to individuals and $500 for dependent children. The second round of payments was $600 per person, both individual and dependent child. And finally, in March of this year, the last payment, the third economic protection program for individuals, was a $1,400 payment that was made to individuals and households, again, who fell into that category of household income, two-person household income of $150,000 or less, or a individual with $75,000 or less. And that $1 trillion in payments, transfers that have been made, have helped support not only the normal things that happen in our economy, people being able to take care of making their payments on their homes, or their rent, their car payments, being able to afford to buy their groceries and pay their medical bills. But it's also had some very responsible consumer behavior that we'll talk about as well. We've had $2.7 trillion in loan programs, and that includes PPP. And I hope that everybody on this call had a chance to benefit from the payroll protection program, which was a brilliant initiative that was spun up very quickly to try to make sure that we protected the people who create jobs in our communities, particularly small businesses and medium-sized businesses. And that $2.7 trillion may have been the greatest investment we've ever made in our economy. And again, as we look at what it did, the very purpose was to make certain that it protected the people who were providing a paycheck to folks in times when they had their businesses had literally often been closed, in order to protect our public health. We have $2.1 trillion in liquidity programs. The government has bought U.S. government bonds, mortgage-backed securities, has tried to make sure that it helped undergird our economy so that we would not be so damaged as we emerged from the pandemic, that we had lost the ability to do certain things. And so the full faith and credit of our government has been behind us to try to protect us and our institutions that make life in this country possible. And finally, we've had $1 trillion in transfers to state and local governments that have helped support a decrease in tax revenues, because for much of the early days of the pandemic, we were literally unable to go anywhere and to buy anything. Only essential businesses were allowed to be open across our entire nation. And so all of these programs, this government intervention, has been a huge part of trying to support and protect our economy. Of course, we've got long and hard questions that all of us who are thoughtful about how we pay for these things, that's a question that we'll have to answer over time. But again, I think there were very wise decisions made by a lot of folks to try to protect all of us and make sure that we emerge from this pandemic with some of our businesses protected and our institutions protected as well. Our workforce has been through an extraordinary transformation. When we started this process, we had the fastest growth in unemployment that we have ever had in our nation's history, including taking a look at the Great Depression, as well as the Great Recession of the 2000s. We really weren't sure that we would ever be able to re-employ the people who were displaced. But what's really interesting today, and this is information that's accurate as of Friday of last week, there are 11 million open jobs in the United States right now, and there are only 7.4 million available workers. I think you all are, everybody on this call who's looking for a person to fill a position in their organization is probably experiencing this extraordinary dislocation. Our fear at the beginning of the pandemic was that we would eliminate jobs and we would never replace those jobs and recover those jobs. What we've seen is actually a recovery that has brought back to us an extraordinary number of jobs and job opportunities. But what we've seen is a decline in the workforce participation rate. Folks are making different kinds of decisions about how they want to work and if they want to work. And it is something that is important for all of us as businesses small businesses, mid-sized businesses, to try to understand that we are now in a position where we have to woo people to be a part of our organizations. We want to help encourage people to be a part of us. And that's never been more clearly evident than by the fact that in the month of September, 4.4 million workers quit their jobs, either permanently or to move on to another job. And so these are unprecedented times in terms of our workforce and where we're headed. If any of y'all have been to the grocery store, to the gas pumps, purchased anything, you're fully aware of the statistic that I'm about to share with you. And that is that our consumer price index inflation unexpectedly, after a significant recession, inflation is on the rise. Currently, the consumer price index is at 6.2%. For those of us who have been living through a period of time, beginning actually in the mid 2000s and continuing to today, we've been experiencing 2% inflation rates. So a 6.2% inflation rate is extraordinary. It's particularly being seen in certain areas of the economy. Everyone knows if you've gone out to look for a new car or a used car, this is a time where both new car prices are up by 9% and used car prices are up by 26%. That's because there's a shortage of chips, as everybody is aware. Supply chain disruptions have interrupted the production of automobiles, which is cascaded through the entire system. And all of us know in this country, our automobiles are part of the vital resource that we have to help us move to and from our workplaces, to be able to go to and from our schools, to do our normal daily activities. So it's important. As we move into what's scheduled to be a cold winter, heating oil prices are up by 60%. Again, a result of lots of things that happen in the economy, among them some changes in the way that we're processing our pipelines and making other choices. But that inflation at 60% is going to truly hit people hard in their pocketbooks, because you don't have any choice about whether you're going to warm your home. Gas prices are up by 50% from their lows. If you've been to the gas tank recently, I'm not telling you a thing you don't know. And finally, food prices are up 14%. And I highlighted this because one of the things that I want us to all be aware of as we're thinking about what we're doing and where we're going is that inflation is a tax on all of us. It's when prices rise, it eats into our income in a way that we see immediately. And so that's another piece of this puzzle that we're trying to solve as we look to the future. Where are we going and what are we going to do? Something that we have to understand and acknowledge, particularly as we're trying to fill open positions in our organizations. And finally, I think I just want to acknowledge the impact of consumer shifts, where we are and where we're going. First of all, consumers have new work priorities. And I would acknowledge that some of those priorities are not things that they have discretion about. If you've been a working parent and you've been responsible for supervising your children who are at home doing schooling, you understand that as much as you would have liked to have been in office, there has to be someone there to make sure that your kids are safe and are able to do the work that they need to do to continue their education, or for those children who are not yet in school, to make sure that they are cared for. That has shifted our work priorities, and many people have made the decision that they want to work differently. They've learned that they can work remotely, and we've seen that has actually, we've spun it up in our economy, and that change is something that consumers now value in a new and different way, and they're reluctant to give it up. In fact, the suggestion of that 4.4 million people who quit working in September, a number of those people were people who had been called officially back into their office, and they are reluctant to make that transition. I'll tell you that this is a stunning statistic, and it's not true for everyone, but it's true on average. So I share it with you. And that is that disposable income is actually up 12% versus pre-pandemic for the average American consumer, bolstered in part by those government transfers that were made, by new spending habits, by changes that we've all made and the things that we thought were critical to us that we either do or don't do anymore. But I think it's a pretty interesting statistic to imagine that we are now in a place where actually the average American consumer actually has more disposable income than they had before the pandemic began, rather than less. Inflation is going to impact that. I say that as we move forward. And finally, one of the other interesting statistics is that most consumers use their stimulus monies that they received either for savings or to reduce their debt. And we're only starting to see, as we reach the close of the summer and moved into fall, that consumers are starting to spend a little bit more money. We're seeing that now as credit card balances are rising, and we see a couple of other shifts that indicate that consumers are finally feeling a little bit more confident about letting some of their resources that they've accumulated, spending a little bit of that money. So I said that I sort of wanted to establish just a little bit of context before I kind of thought about where we, as we look to leading forward into 2022 and beyond, thinking about all the things that we've learned and how we can use the lessons that we've learned to help us lead our organizations forward, how we're going to use that to inform the way we process information, to understand who and what we are. And for a second, if we were in a room together, I'd be looking around the room and making eye contact and probably asking a couple of you to specifically think about, for just a moment, I want you to go back and think about where you were in March of 2020, what you thought you understood about yourself and your business, what you thought you understood about who and what you were, what you thought you understood about what you could do and what was not possible to do. And I want you to think just for a moment about that, because I'm going to offer that, like every other momentous event in our lives, we've learned some things. We've all learned some things about both ourselves and our businesses that can make us better at what we do, and more effective as leaders. More importantly, probably more effective as human beings. So I'm going to share some things that are true for our organization and true for me personally, knowing that every one of you could make a list that's very long and very effective about what you've learned. The first thing I want to note is we've learned the power of necessity. And that simple message is we can do more faster than we ever believed possible. I can remember vividly the day that we were told that we were going to have to make a decision about our essential staff and our staff that could work remotely. We were told, a financial institution, just so everyone knows, we are required to be open to serve our customers, but we knew we were going to be serving our customers primarily through our drive-through locations. And we were going to have to find ways to serve and protect our team members who were going to be those who were going to be coming in. And then we had to find a way to support our team members who were going to have to work remotely, either by the necessity of their being home taking care of school-aged or younger children, or because they were in a position where they had an immunocompromised family member and it was impossible for them to leave their homes. We had to find a way to do that. We literally sat at a table in our boardroom and made a list of what seemed to be 2,000 things we had to be able to do in a very short period of time. And what we never believed would have been possible we and all of you, I'm sure, did the same, found a way to do what we needed to do to support our business and our customers and our coworkers in a remarkably short period of time, in ways that we couldn't imagine possible, in ways that were terrifying and exhilarating at the same time, and we made it happen. And I would just personalize that by saying, I mean, we literally provided remote access to almost 2/3 of our workforce in less than 10 days. And we're beginning to work remotely and do all the things that we thought we had to be here to do. And we were making them happen. And I say that because as a lesson for me, it was and all of us did it in 1,000 different ways. But I will tell you that I didn't believe it was possible. I would have, had we been given time instead of necessity, we would have tested it. We would have re-engineered it. We would have done it in a different way. But what I learned is that through this process, that the power of necessity forced us to do more faster, and do it in a way that was really effective. And frankly, the next time I'm faced with something that seems impossible, I'm going to believe a little bit more with more certainty that we can actually make it happen. I want to talk about the lesson, the power of collaboration. I know all of you are in this category. I know that I certainly am. I'm benefit because the people around me are always way smarter than me. And because they are, it is really important to listen to the people that are around us, to have people who have different ideas and perspective help us look at and solve complex issues. But what I learned in this process is that when we have a team of people that share the burden, it multiplies our odds of success. There is no way to describe how grateful I am, and I'm sure all of you are, to the people who surrounded us in this COVID process, who came up with an idea when we hit a wall, who said, what if we try this? Who said, okay, that didn't work. And so now we're going to move on to plan, not A, B, but plan M or Q or probably double Z. All of us have had an enormous reminder of how important it is to not try just to do something on our own, but to find a group of people who have both the skills that we may be missing, who fill our gaps, but also who see the world in a different way, from a different perspective. And I am profoundly grateful for the reminder of how powerful collaboration is, how much it means to us as leaders, and what we can do if we stop trying to do it just by ourselves, and invite as many people as possible to this table with us to help us think about how we might do it differently. I get emotional when I start talking about this, the power of authentic connection and how we have to invent new and better ways to communicate. I am and I know if you can't see it, I'm talking with my hands, I'm leaning forward. I'm wishing so much that I was looking into your individual faces. I'm hoping that we're having a chance to feel it. But what I've had to learn over and over again in this experience is that we have to find new and better ways to communicate with each other, and we have to find new and better ways to connect. It's not enough to say that we're all separated and we can't be together. We have to find a way to touch base with each other. And people have been amazing in terms of virtual cocktail hours and Zoom meetings. And here's an update. Our team members have found ways to talk to each other about, sharing pictures of their families, of their pets, of their experience, their collective experience, so that we have a chance to remember that we may not physically be able to be with each other in the same way that we were, but we can still find a way to connect to each other. And it's so important for us to continue to find a way to connect with each other. I know that we'll go back to being physically in one another's presence more and more as we move forward. But I'm never going to lose sight of the fact that there's a real value to being able to connect with people across distance and across time in ways that we didn't understand or appreciate before, and that is important. And it's important to do it regularly, to do it intentionally, and to continue to be committed to finding new and better ways to connect and to communicate with each other. We need each other to make things work, and to connect authentically and communicate authentically is really important. The power of the willingness to serve. And that is something that I just want to say again as a leader lesson, to be reminded that what I see you do is more important than what I hear you say. I have never seen as many examples of servant leadership in my 42 years of working career as I have seen in the last 18, 20 months of time. What I've seen and learned about people and the way that they care for and take care of one another is amazing. I have seen coworkers who knew that one of their friends had a need of something that they couldn't find, and go look for it for them. I have literally seen people who crossed the bridge into Arkansas and brought back rolls of paper towels and toilet paper and took it to individual homes. And I know y'all think that's crazy when I talk about a willingness to serve, but what it was such a powerful and specific and authentic way for someone to say, I know you're struggling with this. I know you can't get out of the house. I know it's not on the store shelves here. I'm going to go find it and I'm going to try to help you out. It's a small thing, but it's an example. I saw it done by people all across the continuum, and I'm going to say that I saw it done. I have seen people who have reached out to care for and serve each other at every different level of every company, at my competitors, at the places where I do business personally. And I have seen it and observed it in a way that makes me remember there is nothing more powerful than reminding each other that we're going to do for each other what needs to be done. We're going to do the hard thing. We're going to do the easy thing. And as I look to the future, I hope that the lesson we take forward, that willingness to not be bound by whatever our job description may say we do or what our obligation may say we do, but rather we also see it as a place that I'm going to do what I need to do to serve the people that I need to serve, whether they're my coworkers, my boss, my customers, my prospects, or just the people that I encounter in my everyday life. And maybe this is my last, there's so many more lessons, but I maybe want to just say this at the end of this powerful lesson that's been reinforced for me as I look about where we're leading and where we're going as we move forward. I remember, first of all, I'm passionate about this this company that we've built and the privilege it is to serve people and to be a part of their lives, their financial lives, and their dreams and their goals and their vision. But one of the things that I have understood, and there's some great TED Talks on this, probably one of the best I've ever seen, about understanding the power of a shared vision. But we are all at our best when we understand not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it. When we remember that at the end of the day, it is, everyone has a choice. They have a choice about where they do business. They have a choice about where they work. They have a choice about what they bring to the table every day to do those jobs. But the power of a shared vision is just that simple understanding that it's not what we do that matters as much as why we do it. I want to say for us, we have a mission statement that says that we serve heroically. The why we do what we do is to make a difference in the lives of the people that we work with, that we serve as customers, and the people we have an opportunity to encounter in our community and support in their endeavors to make all of our lives better. But the why we do it is to accelerate somebody's dream and vision and goal forward. Our why in our company, and your why in your company, and your why in your family, and your why in your life is such an important thing to have clarity about, and to share that clarity with others, to remind yourself again that it can all be taken away really quickly, that it is a gift to have a chance to do what we love with the people that we love, for the people that we love. And as I look to this experience of the pandemic, what I know is this: I'll never again have a moment where I take for granted how important it is to remember the why of what we do every day, to be committed to doing it a little bit better, and to be thankful for the chance to do it with each other. So, in spite of the fact that we've lived through a nightmare, in spite of the fact that it has been particularly difficult for lots of us on this call, for lots of entrepreneurs, for lots of small business people, to balance and juggle everything, there really is value to getting a real sense of what really matters to you, who really matters to you, to be reminded that that all of it is fragile and not promised, and to have a chance to say, I'm grateful to do it. I'm grateful to do it with the people I do it with every day, and for the people that are part of that circle. And those are the lessons that, in spite of all the craziness, in spite of the fact that we have really been through something that's incredible and difficult to imagine, that we come on through the other side of it, probably smarter, probably kinder, probably wiser, and probably better prepared to be the very best version of ourselves for the people who matter most to us in our businesses and our personal lives as well. So thank you all for letting me take a moment to, as I said, do something that all of you could do yourselves. I'm hopeful that it may have sparked, even in a moment for you, a reminder of what extraordinary things you've done over this time. So many thanks.
Oh, Susan, thank you. And while you were talking, several people in the chat were commenting on some of the points that you made. Mike Pullman said we can all help each other because it's the right thing to do. And you're right. Your words are so timely right now. And you're right. When you spoke to us last year, we thought we were through it. We thought we're on the other side. Hey, let's get back to normal. And it has been a great reset. Thank you, Cynthia Haley. It has been a great reset. Ely Arnett says, thank you again for the presentation. You have been an inspiration, and some of the figures that you put at the beginning about what the government did for us, it was my pleasure to work with the bank, your bank. And as a small business owner, I can tell you without some of that help from banks and governments, we wouldn't have made it. I just got back from New York and I sat down in restaurants that had been closed for 9 months, 10 months, 18 months. A hotel had been closed for a year, but they're beginning to come back with a whole different thoughtfulness. I don't know how else to put it. It seemed very thoughtful. Again, thank you for your experience and your wisdom, Susan. Patricia, I'm going to turn it back over to you for announcements. We're just a few minutes early.
Yeah, Dottie, I actually got a question by text, and this person said, how do you establish a culture of collaboration, Susan?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I hope we're still doing it every day, but the answer is, for me, for all of us here, we've literally learned, particularly as we've navigated the pandemic and COVID-19, that the best thing we can do is get as many people involved in trying to deliver a service or solve a problem to bring us all together and to literally listen to each other. I think that culture of collaboration really comes down to making sure you make your table as big as you possibly can make it. It is if it makes no sense to you, a metaphorical table in many cases, since we were doing our discussions on Zoom. We all learned how to jump in and mute ourselves. We learned how to use the chat feature where we raised our hand. We learned how to clap for each other virtually. But what I keep saying, how do you build a culture of collaboration, is every day you realize that somebody, if you have an issue or a problem, you literally are in the position to say, who can help me solve this? Who has both skill and talent and perspective? Who can remind me what I've forgotten? Who can help me realize that I'm way off base, which, by the way, I need reminding on the regular. And hopefully, as you establish that culture of collaboration, as you think about it, the one thing you have to be is be willing to be wrong, and be willing to embrace that you just learned something. If you were really wrong about something, the very best thing in the world that can happen to you is somebody can remind you that you need to see it from a different perspective. But collaboration is intentional and ongoing and permanent. And every day I need to get better at doing it. Every day.
So true. And thank you, Susan. And it is definitely intentional. I remember when Beverly Robertson came aboard and we had our initial meeting, and she mentioned collaboration, and silos are bad, collaboration good. And so it is something that we have to work hard on, but it is a beautiful thing when it works. And the only way that it'll work is if you decide every day that you're going to connect with others to make the dream possible. And that's the dream of success for your company, your organization, your families, or whatever your goal is. So thank you, Susan. Dottie, we have someone that asked, I think there's a person that shared something about this being the reset. So they wanted to know how that was a reset. Tanja, could we unmute Cynthia Haley?
Right. I asked her if she wanted to share how it's been a reset. Cynthia, are you? Oh, and while Cynthia's, hopefully we're going to open her up, another one of our think tank members has joined us, Judy Bell, as well as Catherine Gray from Independent Bank. Thank you, Cynthia. You said that this has been a reset for you. Do you want to share a little bit about how and why?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, the way it has been a great reset for me is just like Susan said. It reminded me to not be so busy, where I can appreciate life and my work and my family and the environment and everything. It gave me the time with the shutdown when it first happened to really reflect and like myself and learn how to be patient and just be very grateful for everything, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing. So that's it, and that's a reflection for me every day now, because like Susan said, we haven't lived through anything like this. So it has definitely been a teachable and learning situation for me. I have taught some people some things, and I have learned a lot of things.
Thank you, Cynthia, very, very much. And I think some of us have learned that we're not going to do the things that we used to do. I think we've thrown away some of the things that were pretty commonplace. A lot of I'll do it tomorrow or I'll get to it tomorrow has gone away because it's the level of uncertainty still has not gone away for all of us, I think, at all. Patricia, I don't have any more Q&A, so I'm going to turn it back over to you for announcements.
Yes, I was looking. Yes, and neither do I. So first of all, thank you again, Susan, for being so you're such a warm speaker. You know, I feel like I can just sit in your office. I feel like I'm there with you every time you speak, whether it's in person or virtual. So thank you again. Thank you all for joining us. But we do want to remind you that we have one more event left for the Small Business Council, and that is the Pathway to Success. And a gold medalist, Dr. Rochelle Stevens, is going to be speaking to us about that. You know, when you are an athlete, you don't always win, right? And the same applies for business, but you do have strategies for pressing forward. And so I believe that Dr. Stevens is going to really share some great nuggets for you all. So that is December 2nd at noon. So you should be able to register for that, but we will share more details about that moving forward. Go ahead, Dottie.
One more thing before we close out. Both Susan and I and Patricia have talked about the Prosper series. And for those of you who are not with us last year, Beverly asked us to please to do something for small businesses on resiliency. And with Patricia's brainchild of Prosper, we all wanted to return to prosperity, but it was right in the middle and we didn't know what to do. And we invited about 50 small business leaders across the city to participate in sessions on perspective refocus, operation systems, people engagement, and refocus and return to prosperity. And Susan was our final speaker there. And we promised at that time, because small businesses didn't have a playbook. When this happened, we couldn't turn around on our shelf and pull down, okay, how do I handle this? We didn't have a team to figure out, are my systems ready? Are my finances ready? Is my staff ready? Am I ready to lead during this? And we wanted to give small businesses a playbook that it's not if, but it's gonna happen again. We're gonna have a bad snowstorm. We're gonna have another Hurricane Elvis. God forbid we have another pandemic, but something's gonna happen to cause us to shut down and turn again and refocus. And how are we gonna be resilient? And we promised as we ended that series that we would be putting into small businesses' hands a playbook for resiliency. Now, Patricia, I'm going to give it to you to talk about where that lands in the last 4 or 5 minutes we're together.
Yeah, so we have the playbook that will be launched this week. And within that playbook, we have a microsite. So this is a living and breathing initiative that we have. So not only is there a playbook, but there's also resources. We want to hear from you as small business leaders as well, to be able to share with us what's going on in your world. On that microsite, we have videos that will inspire you, because they're examples of businesses that really represent resiliency. So we're excited to present this to you. There will be a link shared with you that you can put your email address in there and you'll get the playbook. But feel free to share with us any of your insights, anything that you want to let us know about in that small business arena.
And all of the Small Business Council meetings that we've had this year, those videos will also be on the site. So Cynthia, when you go talk to your best friend and say, I just went to the best program and Susan Stephenson spoke, you can send her that site and she can play it and listen and learn also. It will be, as Patricia said, a living, breathing site. And we promised at the end of Prosper that we would do our best to continue to prepare small businesses to return to prosperity and to succeed with everybody's help.
All
Yep.
right.
That's it.
Again, thank you all for joining us. Dottie, do you have any closing remarks before I bid everybody adieu?
Yes, everybody start cooking this weekend. Thanksgiving is next weekend. Have a blessed time around the table with the family, wherever you gather, friends and family, and a safe time if you're traveling somewhere. Everyone take care. Susan, many, many thanks again. It's an absolute joy to listen to you and to have you part of us. Everyone, we're going to give you back 4 minutes of your day today. So take care and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.